April evening, 1951. Freight yard on the outskirts of Moscow. An 18-year-old girl walks across the vacant lot, clutching a worn handbag with her week's earnings 25 rubles. 7 men step out from the shadows of the freight cars, slowly surrounding her. In their eyes burns the cold determination of those who came from Voronezh with one goal: to avenge their own. The girl stops, realizing there's nowhere to run. And then, from the darkness, a lone figure emerges. A 42-year-old man with the hands of a loader and the eyes of someone who's been through war. He steps between the girl and the 7 bandits. No words, no threats, just stands there. What happens in the next few minutes becomes one of those stories that never made it into the official chronicles of post-war Moscow. There are events the newspapers never wrote about. Stories whispered in breadlines, in communal kitchens, on the back lots of wholesale depots. Contemporaries recalled that in April of 1951, at the unloading freight yard, something happened that changed the fates of many people. The story of loader Ivan Sokolov is one of those that makes you think about the price of human life and what a person is capable of to protect that one thing that gives meaning to their existence. Moscow, April 1951. The city that had celebrated victory 6 years earlier was now learning to live with its aftermath. On the streets, war veterans with medals on faded tunics. In stores, lines for the bare essentials. At the wholesale depots, a daily battle between those trying to work honestly and those who'd chosen another path. Depot No. 9 was in an industrial district where the tram lines ended and the freight warehouses began. Here, amid sacks of flour and crates of canned goods, worked a man whose past only a few knew. Ivan Sokolov, 42 years old, 6 feet 2 inches tall, hands that could hoist a 72-pound sack with one motion, and a gaze that made even the boldest thieves keep their distance. The loader's salary was 85 rubles. Not much, but enough for a solitary man. Sokolov lived in a basement barrack near the depot. A 10 by 16-foot room, iron bed, table, stool. On the wall, the only photo a group shot of his reconnaissance platoon, taken in 1944 near Kursk. Of the 11 men in the picture, only he remained alive. Neighbors in the barrack tried to keep quiet when screams came from his room at night. Everyone understood. The man was fighting ghosts from the past and losing that war every night. Every morning at 5:30, Ivan Sokolov woke a minute before his alarm, a habit from his frontline scouting days. His internal clock was more precise than a Swiss mechanism. He washed in icy water from a tin basin, shaved with a straight razor, staring into a cracked mirror that reflected a face etched with deep wrinkles and a scar across his left cheek, a memento from hand-to-hand combat in 1944. Breakfast was always the same: a chunk of black bread, a mug of boiling water with saccharin. By 6 a.m., he was already striding down empty streets to Depot No. 9. Eyewitnesses remembered that Sokolov stood out among the other loaders. Not his looks, there were plenty of sturdy guys at the depot. It was something else. The way he moved silently, like stalking even in broad daylight. The way he snapped his head toward sharp sounds instantly, like a predator. The way he looked right through people, as if reading their thoughts. Foreman Alexei Nikolaev, a veteran himself, once let slip. This guy didn't just fight. He did things on the front lines they never wrote about in the papers. Sokolov worked in silence. In a shift, he hauled more goods than 2 young loaders combined. Sacks of flour, crates of canned food, barrels of pickles. It all passed through his hands. At the end of the workday, when the others collapsed from exhaustion, he stayed at the depot, helping the watchman check the warehouse locks. Paid or not, it was just habit. In war, the one who didn't check posts didn't last long. In the depot canteen, Sokolov always sat with his back to the wall, facing the door. He ate fast, mechanically, tasting nothing. Cabbage soup for 28 kopecks, buckwheat porridge for 1 ruble, 15 kopecks. Compote for 45 kopecks. It irritated the other loaders. He seemed walled off by an invisible barrier. Attempts at conversation met with one-word answers. Invites for a post-shift drink, a polite refusal. Sokolov existed in his own world, letting no one in. But the spring of 1951 changed everything. A new employee arrived at the depot, an 18-year-old Olga Kozlova, a war orphan, like thousands of others. Her father died at Stalingrad, her mother from typhus in evacuation. The girl got a job in the depot office, copying invoices for 25 rubles a week. Quiet, unassuming, with big gray eyes, holding the sorrow of a lost childhood. It was those eyes Sokolov noticed on her first day, and something stirred in his stony soul, something he thought had died with his platoon near Kursk. It started small. Sokolov began showing up in the office with various errands from the foreman, hauling heavy ledgers, Soviet accounting books, thick volumes of records that young loaders could have carried. He quietly straightened slipping stacks of documents on the desk. One evening, when Olga stayed late, he silently walked her to the tram stop, 10 paces behind. The girl turned, wanted to say something, but saw his gaze, the gaze of a man guarding the one thing left that mattered in his world. It went on like that for 4 weeks. 4 weeks of strange, silent care. The other depot staff whispered, but Sokolov didn't care. For the first time in 6 years since the war, he had a reason to wake up in the morning. But that's when real trouble came to the depot. Olga Kozlova arrived at Depot No. 9 on the 4th of April, a Monday. Contemporaries remembered that day differently, but all agreed. The girl looked like she was begging for alms, not applying for a job. A dress remade from a military tunic, pre-war shoes worn through, a canvas bag with documents in hand. The office head, Grigory Vasilyev, a heavy-set man with a perpetually red face, eyed her appraisingly and grunted. "Can you read? Do numbers? Fine, you're hired. 25 rubles a week. Lunch in the canteen at her own expense." The office was in a wooden annex to the main warehouse. 4 desks piled with invoices, ledgers, acceptance forms, smell of ink, dust, and sour cabbage from the canteen. They put Olga in the farthest corner by the window, overlooking the loading platform. Her first days, she worked without lifting her head, copying figures from one ledger to another, calculating on an abacus, cross-checking invoices. Her hands trembled not from cold, but from the constant inner tension of someone used to disaster striking at any moment. It was through that window Sokolov first saw her face in daylight. He was unloading a flour car, mechanically slinging 50-kilogram sacks onto his shoulder. When his gaze flicked to the office window, the girl sat bent over papers, a sunbeam lighting her profile. Fine features, hollow cheeks, blue shadows under her eyes from malnutrition and sleepless nights. But it wasn't beauty. Pretty girls were plentiful in post-war Moscow. It was the expression on her face. Sokolov had seen that look in kids from liberated villages, those who'd survived occupation, lost everyone close, and kept living just because they hadn't died. That day, Sokolov did something he hadn't done in 6 years. After his shift, he didn't head straight to the barrack. He stopped at the corner store on Kuznetsky Lane, lingering at the counter, eyeing the meager selection. Finally, he bought a can of condensed milk for 4 rubles, 10 kopecks, almost a full day's pay. The next morning, the can appeared on Olga's desk, covered by yesterday's evening Moscow paper. No one saw how it got there. The office was empty. The workday hadn't started. It continued like that for a week. An apple would appear by the inkwell, or a piece of real white bread in greasy paper, or a handful of pre-war caramels in a paper bag. Olga knew who the gifts were from. She saw Sokolov quietly checking if she'd taken the latest offering. One day their eyes met through the window. The girl gave a slight smile and nodded. "Thanks." Sokolov turned away, as if caught doing something shameful. But wrinkles formed at the corners of his eyes. those smile lines that hadn't appeared in years. Depot staff started noticing changes. The grim, silent loader wasn't chattier, but something shifted in his movements. The set of his head, Foreman Alexei Nikolaev remarked over lunch. "Looking at our Sokolov, it's like the man's come alive. He was wandering like a lost soul before, about to start digging holes in the ground." The other loaders exchanged glances but stayed quiet. They all knew what was up and approved in their own way. At a depot where every day was a fight for a scrap of bread, any spark of humanity was prized. But that awakened humanity in Sokolov drew the eye of those it hindered, because Olga had caught more than just the ex-scout's attention. The Claw Gang showed up at the depot mid-April, when the apple trees in Moscow courtyards had already bloomed and the air filled with the scent of approaching summer. The nickname Claw belonged to a thief named Viktor Klykov, a short, wiry 30-something with a mangled left ear. They said it was cut off in a camp for breaking thieves' code, but no one knew for sure. Claw didn't come alone with him, were 5. 3 local punks and 2 from the Moscow suburbs. They holed up in a half-ruined house across from the depot, perfect for watching all entrances and exits. Their first introduction came on the 21st of April, a Friday payday. Loaders lined up at the cashier's window when 3 men sauntered through the gates. They moved leisurely, hands in pockets, stopping in the middle of the loading yard. Claw pulled out a cigarette, took his time lighting it, scanning the grounds with an appraising eye. Then, softly, but loud enough for all to hear, "Workers, listen up. Starting today, this depot's under our wing. Nice way, 10% off your paycheck. Hard way." He trailed off, just smirking to show his gold-capped teeth. The young loaders were first in the crosshairs, guys in their 20s, fresh from the village for work. They refused to pay. That evening, they got jumped in an alley. One got 2 ribs broken, the other a smashed nose. Next day, both showed up for work, no choice. No work, no food. But now, collecting pay, they silently peeled off 8 rubles, 50 kopecks for the common pot, thieves' collective fund. Others followed suit, some from fear, some from calculation. Better lose 10% than 100% plus your health. Sokolov refused to pay. When one of Claw's goons, a scrawny kid nicknamed Spike, approached and stuck out his hand for the tax, the loader didn't even turn his head, kept stacking sacks like no one was there. Spike grabbed his shoulder in the next second. He was on the ground, curled in pain. Sokolov hadn't even struck, just twisted the arm in a special way. A frontline move. Tell your Claw. Let him come himself if he's got the guts. He tossed over his shoulder and went back to work. That evening, Claw came himself, with 4 others. They formed a semicircle, cutting off Sokolov's retreat. Claw toyed with a folding knife, flipping it hand to hand, a psychological ploy that worked on most. But Sokolov stared through him, seeing every twitch and feint. "You must be some hero, frontliner probably. Got medals?" Sokolov said nothing. "Quiet, smart. But here's the thing, hero. War's over new rules now. Pay up, or..." Claw slashed the air with the knife. What followed took no more than 3 seconds. Sokolov lunged forward into the thick of them. His movements were so swift and precise that the watching loaders couldn't later describe exactly what happened. Claw ended up pinned against the wall, his own knife at his throat. The 4 henchmen froze, afraid to jump in. Sokolov leaned close to the thief's ear, enunciating each word. "I strangled your kind barehanded on the front. Get out of the depot. This is your first and last warning." He released Claw, turned, and walked away without looking back. The thieves stood stunned, but Sokolov underestimated one thing. For a thief, losing face in front of his crew meant losing everything. Claw couldn't just slink away, he had to regain respect, and he chose the lowest blow. Strike at what his enemy held dear. And everyone at the depot already knew what the silent loader valued. The hunt for Olga began. The 28th of April, a Thursday. changed the power balance at Depot Number 9 forever. The day started normally. A light drizzle turned the loading yard into a mush of mud and sawdust. Olga arrived early, needed to finish the quarterly report. The office was empty. Only watchman Uncle Fyodor dozed in his shack by the entrance. The girl sat at her desk, spread out the papers, started calculating. The click of the abacus in the morning quiet ticked like a metronome, counting down the last minutes of peace. At 7:30, the office door flew open. Two men entered, Spike and another from Claw's gang, a brute nicknamed Paw. They flanked Olga's desk. The girl looked up. Fear flashed in her eyes, but her voice stayed steady. "The office opens at 8. Come back later." Spike smirked, reached out, and swept the stack of freshly tallied invoices off the desk. Papers scattered across the floor. "You, sweetheart, are coming with us. Claw wants to chat about your bodyguard." Olga pressed back into her chair, knowing if she stood and went now, she might not come back, or come back in a way she'd rather not. Paw stepped closer, hand reaching for her shoulder, and that's when Sokolov appeared in the doorway. He stood silent, blocking the exit. In his hands, an iron crowbar for prying stuck freight cars. Raindrops ran down his face, but he didn't blink, fixing the thieves with that gaze that had chilled German sentries' napes in 1943. "Step away from the girl," Sokolov said quietly, but with such force that Spike involuntarily backed up a step. Paw seemed bolder or dumber. He yanked a finished knife from his belt, lunged at Sokolov. What happened next? Olga remembered for life, though it lasted mere seconds. Sokolov didn't retreat. He stepped into the attack, sidestepping the blade. The crowbar in his hands arced short crack of a breaking wrist. The knife clattered to the floor. Second, blow to the knee. Paw collapsed, howling, clutching his leg. Spike tried to bolt, but Sokolov was faster. Grabbed his collar, spun him, headbutted his nose. Blood sprayed like a fountain. Sokolov stood over the two writhing bodies, breathing even, as if he hadn't just crippled two able-bodied men. He turned to Olga. "Gather your things. Today you'll take a cab home. I'll walk you." Then he bent to Spike, who was cupping his smashed nose with bloody palms. "Tell Claw." That was the last line. "If any of you approach the girl again, I won't be so merciful. War taught me to kill quick and quiet. All 6 of you, one night for me." Word spread through the depot in an hour. Loaders whispered, but without judgment. Many were veterans themselves, they understood. Sokolov was defending what he claimed as his. On the front, you stood for your own to the end. Depot head Boris Sergeyev called Sokolov in, but the talk was brief. "Ivan, I saw nothing, heard nothing, but if the cops come, you're fired without severance." Sokolov nodded and left, but everyone knew this wasn't over. Claw wouldn't forgive the humiliation. Now it wasn't about shakedowns or respect, it was about blood, and it would spill. Question was, whose and when? Sokolov knew better than most. That night, he made a decision that could cost his life, but might save Olga. He'd go into the beast's lair, alone. The night from the 28th to the 29th of April was stifling. Moscow gasped in humid heat, heralding a storm. In the basement of a half-ruined house on Kozhevanaya Street, where Claw's gang holed up, it was especially close. 4 thieves played cards by kerosene lamplight. A bottle of moonshine, homemade Soviet vodka, rough and potent, passed around. Claw sat in the corner, sharpening his finished knife on a leather belt. Rage boiled in him all day, humiliation at the depot. 2 crippled fighters, shaken authority. "Tomorrow morning, we go full crew," he said without looking up. "Take Sokolov quiet when he leaves the depot. And the girl." He didn't finish, but they all got it. The basement door was barred from inside. The single window under the ceiling boarded up. The thieves felt safe for nothing. At 2:30 a.m., the light went out. Someone cut the wire outside. The kerosene lamp flickered and died. as if blown out by an unseen draft. In pitch black, Sokolov's voice rang out, "I've come to finish what I started." What exactly happened in the next 32 seconds can only be pieced from traces and later accounts. The thieves jumped up, rushed toward the voice. But Sokolov was already in another corner. Strike, crack of a breaking jaw, scream, thud of a falling body. Someone lunged for the door, useless. The bar jammed from outside. Shadows flailed in the dark. Blows and groans and curses echoed. Sokolov moved soundlessly, striking vulnerable spots, techniques honed over years of night raids behind enemy lines. Claw tried to organize a defense, yelling for his men to back, but in pitch dark and panic, it was impossible. Sokolov struck methodically, calculatedly, not killing, but maiming, breaking arms, shattering knees, choking to unconsciousness. One thief, called Gray, tried to smash the boarded window, jumped, grabbed the planks. In the next second, Sokolov's hand clamped his wrist, yanked down, fall, crack of a dislocated shoulder. When it all quieted, a scrape sounded. Sokolov struck a match. In the flickering light, 4 twisted figures moaning, writhing, unable to rise. Claw lay against the wall, clutching his broken arm. Sokolov squatted before him. "Now listen close. By morning, you all vanish from the district forever. If even one shows within a kilometer of the depot or the girl, I'll find you. And next time, no mercy." On the front, I cleared a German bunker in one night. 7 men, silent with a knife. "You 6? Warm up for me." Sokolov rose, headed for the exit. At the door, he paused, not turning. "And don't visit Spike or Pa in the hospital. My frontline buddies are waiting there. Try revenge. They'll tip me off, and I'll come finish what I didn't tonight." He left. Heavy steps faded. The basement held only moans and the stench of fear. The morning of the 29th of April, neighbors found the basement door open. Inside, signs of struggle and blood, but no one. Claw's gang vanished from the district as suddenly as they'd appeared. Rumors said a flatbed truck pulled up at dawn, loading several men who couldn't walk on their own. Where they went, no one knew, and no one cared. At the depot, they didn't speak aloud of Sokolov's night visit, but everyone knew what happened. Attitudes toward the silent loader shifted, a mix of respect and fear. A man who could take down a whole gang alone. But the main thing he did, it not for himself, but for the girl who became more precious than his own safety. But Sokolov understood what others didn't. Claw was small fry. Bigger players backed him, and they wouldn't forgive. The morning of the 30th of April began with uneasy silence that kind veterans recognized a mile off, when the air thickens before an artillery barrage, when even birds fall quiet, sensing doom. Depot number 9 worked, but mechanically, through force. Loaders whispered. Watchmen doubled patrols. Even the perpetually drunk supply chief Pyotr sobered up, pacing the grounds with the worried look of a man sensing a storm, but not knowing from which side it had hit. Sokolov didn't show at the depot that morning, or the next. Foreman Alexei Nikolaev said the loader took 5 days off without pay, for the first time in 4 years. But those in the same barrack told odd tales. Sokolov's room was locked, no more nightmare screams at night. But neighbors saw a shadow in the window still, as if the man sat staring at one spot for hours. By day, they spotted his silhouette in unexpected places, on a neighbor's roof, in an alley across from the tram stop, in an abandoned shed by the freight yard. Sokolov seemed to dissolve into the urban landscape, becoming part of it, invisible but omnipresent. Olga kept going to work, not because she was brave, there was no choice. 25 rubles a week was the line between life and slow starvation. Every morning, she left her room in the Kommunalka Soviet communal apartment, where multiple families shared one cramped space with common kitchen and bathroom, on Kuznetsky Lane, hopped on tram number 6, rode to the end of the line, then walked the vacant lot to the depot, and every morning At different stretches of the path, she felt eyes on her. She didn't see Sokolov, but knew he was nearby, guarding, protecting like a guardian angel. No girl with her background deserved. On the 2nd of May, a Wednesday, the first alarm bell rang. Olga headed home her usual route. The tram broke down halfway, as if on purpose. Passengers spilled out, scattered. Olga walked 2 kilometers to home. Dusk thickened, streets emptied. Near a ruined church on Voronezh Street, 2 men caught up. They trailed 30 meters, then quickened. Olga quickened too. They ran. The girl darted into the nearest alley, pressed against the wall, held her breath. Footsteps neared, and sudden silence. Then a thud, muffled cry. Another thud. Olga peeked. 2 bodies on the pavement. No one around. Just a familiar figure flashing in the opposite alley's dark. On the 3rd of May, a letter came. Not by mail, slipped under the office door. Olga unfolded the crumpled sheet, read the single line, "Leave Moscow." This isn't a request. Handwriting unfamiliar, but she guessed the sender. That day, Foreman Alexei Nikolaev approached her. He hemmed and hawed, coughed, finally blurted, "Olga, maybe take leave? A week or 2? Visit relatives?" Olga shook her head. "No relatives. Alexei Nikolaevich." The foreman sighed. "Figured. But hear me out. Sokolov's a serious guy, but he's not iron. And those backing claw." He trailed off, waved a hand, and left. On the 4th of May, Olga woke to a strange feeling, like someone watching through the window, the 3rd-floor room. But the sensation was so real she got up, went to the glass. Street empty. Just a man in a cap under the lamppost. Face indistinct. He stood stock still, head tilted up straight at her window. Olga recoiled. When she looked again a minute later, no one. But on the sill, a pebble wrapped in paper, unwrapped inside a note. "They're here. 7 from Voronezh. Tomorrow or the next run." But Olga didn't run. Morning of the 5th of May, she came to work as usual. Sat at her desk. Spread papers. Hands shook, numbers in the ledgers blurred. Lunch break, she skipped the canteen, nausea from fear. Sat alone in the office, staring out at the loading platform, and suddenly saw him. Sokolov leaned against the far warehouse wall. Gaunt, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, a week without sleep showed. Their eyes met through the grimy glass. Sokolov slowly shook his head. "Go." Olga pressed her lips, stubborn. "No." He turned and vanished into the warehouse maze. Evening of the 5th of May. What everyone dreaded happened. Olga left the depot later than usual, delayed by the monthly report. Sun setting, sky turning an ominous crimson. 15 minutes to the tram stop across the vacant lot. Usually, people were around then, workers from nearby factories heading home. But that evening, the lot lived up to its name. Not a soul, just wine-chasing newspaper scraps between rusty spare rails. Olga covered half the distance when they appeared. 7 men stepped from behind freight cars, spreading in a chain, cutting off escape. They advanced slow, confident pros sent to restore tarnished thieves' honor. The girl stopped. Nowhere to run, no point, they'd catch her anyway. Her short life flashed. Father leaving for the front in 1941, mother dying of typhus in evacuation, orphanage, depot, Sokolov with his clumsy care. Last thought of him. Good. He's not here. He shouldn't see what's about to happen. And then he appeared as if materializing from air. Stood between her and the 7 thieves' wolves. Silent. No threats. No weapon, just stood. Hands empty. Only death in his eyes and readiness to die, taking as many enemies as he could. The Voronezh brigade arrived in Moscow on the 3rd of May, a Tuesday. 7 men, each with a rap sheet that chilled even seasoned Moscow crooks' spines. Leader Foma, nicknamed Pockmark, a 41-year-old made thief who'd done 11 years on the Kolyma Soviet forced labor camps in Siberia. They said he was the only one to walk out alive from solitary after the 1946 riot. With him, 6 hand-picked fighters, not street punks, but real wolves from camps and war. Some on the wrong side of that war, no medals for it. They didn't hole up in a dive, they rented a room in a decent house in Zamoskvorekiye. They had cash Moscow's underworld chipped in to right the wrong. Because it wasn't just about Claw and his maimed crew anymore. It was principle. If one loader could smash thieves unpunished, others would follow tomorrow. The system would crack, and that couldn't be allowed. First 2 days, the Voronezh men scouted, singles or pairs, memorizing routes, depot schedules, tracking Olga's movements, digging on Sokolov, who, where from, who he talked to. Info was thin. Frontline scout, clammed up after war. No friends, no enemies till lately. Perfect target, no one to avenge him. Only one thing nagged. He took down the locals too easy. So, no ordinary vet. One of those dropped behind German lines in 1944 for a week, with just a knife and dynamite. Few like that. Most didn't make victory. The survivors? On the 5th of May, Foma gathered his men in the rented room, unrolled a hand-drawn district map on the table, marked key spots with crosses. Depot, Sokolov's barrack, Olga's house. Tram stop, vacant lot by the freight yard. Grab the girl, he said short. Sokolov will come himself. Work the girl over full. Make an example so others think twice. Sokolov, quiet and quick, no twitch. Then, bodies on a freight to the suburbs, lime quarry. No questions. Plan simple, solid, tested. But Foma missed one thing. Sokolov didn't fight by thieves' rules. He fought wars. In war, you study the enemy, predict moves, set traps. All week, while Voronezh men studied him, Sokolov studied them, knew their crash pad, faces, habits, even Foma's bad leg, an old camp injury, slight limp left. Knew 2 of the 6 were ex-collaborators, served Germans in occupation. Knew 1, called Old Man, did punitive raids on partisans in the war. That info gold, several ex-partisans worked the depot. They'd never forgive if they knew. On the 5th of May, the planned hit day, Foma made his one mistake. Decided to take the girl open, so word spread across Moscow. Not just grab and go stage a public execution on the vacant lot, visible from nearby houses, but too scared to interfere, so yards would whisper later. 7 men over 1 girl, and no one dared step in. Fear thieves' main weapon. By 4 p.m., Voronezh men took positions. 3 in left freight cars, 3 right, 2 including Foma, by the old semaphore in the lot's center. Waiting knew Olga'd be late. Bribed cleaner at the depot tipped, girls finishing monthly report. Out around 6, lot empty. Perfect timing. At 5:30, canvas rustled in 1 car. A bloodied man tumbled out. 1 Voronezh man Scar tried to yell, but blood gushed from his mouth instead of sound. Dropped face first into gravel. Others tensed. But too late, Sokolov was among them, not outside, inside their formation. How he got there? A riddle, with no time for answers. Second Voronezh man in the next car didn't turn back of head bash with rebar. Body slumped. Third went for his knife. Sokolov grabbed the arm, twisted, slashed tendons with the man's own blade. Scream echoed across the lot. The other 5 rushed to help, but Sokolov vanished, melted between cars like a ghost. Foma bellowed, "Stick together, backs to backs." But panic spread. This wasn't a brawl, it was a hunt. And they weren't the hunters. A shadow flashed between cars. Old man charged with a pry bar. Thud silence. Old man didn't return. The 4 left, huddled in the lot's middle. And then Olga stepped onto the vacant lot. Saw them, stopped. Foma bared his teeth. At least something on plan. Stepped toward the girl, and between them, Sokolov materialized. as if from under the ground, hands empty, covered in blood, not his. Eyes empty, dead eyes of a man who decided and would see it through. 4 of yours out of the game? Sokolov said even. You 4 against me, 1. Decent odds, but I'll give you a choice. Walk now, you live. Touch the girl, I'll kill everyone. Not maim like your pals. Kill, like I killed Krauts in 1944. Quiet and final. Foma eyed his men. Fear in their eyes, they were used to instilling terror, not feeling it, but no choice. Back down meant losing all. Foma nodded, and they fanned out at Sokolov. What followed entered Moscow's criminal legends as the vacant lot slaughter. 6 Penta M. Moscow lived its usual life. Couples strolled Arbat, savoring spring's last warm days. Zamosk Forekie market folded up, tallying days' take. In communalkas on Kuznetsky Lane, women clanged pots on shared stoves for dinner. No one knew that very minute, on the vacant lot by the freight yard, a drama unfolded deciding several fates. A drama with no winners, just survivors and dead. Olga Kozlova left the office at 6:15. Monthly report, done 38 pages of tight figures, each penny matching. Hands ached from writing, eyes burned from fatigue. She paused on the porch, adjusted her scarf. Evening air warm, scented with fading lilac from the abandoned garden behind the warehouses. Ordinary May evening, only something off, too quiet. Even loaders usually smoking by the gates after shift gone. And birds silent, no sparrow chirps, though hundreds usually buzzed here. Watchman Uncle Fyodor peeked from his shack, looked at Olga with a strange expression, opened his mouth like to speak, thought better, just shook his head and ducked back. The girl shrugged and headed for the depot exit. Gates opened massive ironclad leaves, usually locked at 6 sharp. Odd. Olga stepped out, turned right to the vacant lot. 12 minutes walk to the tram stop. She'd done this path hundreds of times. Knew every pothole, rusty spare rail, leaning telegraph pole. The lot greeted her with unnatural emptiness. Usually folks, factory workers cutting to the tram, local kids playing war among freight cars, junkman Abram hauling his cart of scraps. But now, not a soul. Just wind-stirring newspaper bits and distant clang of freight buffers. Olga quickened. Unease rose, that gut feel that saved her in evacuation, knowing when to bolt from another roundup of street kids. She'd gone a third when she caught movement edge sight. Left, from a rusty car with faded bread label. A tall, broad man in cap pulled low. Then second, third, right. Shadows stirred too. Olga stopped. Heart hammered so loud it seemed the whole neighborhood heard. 7 men converged slow, unhurried to the lot's center, where she stood, an 18-year-old girl with a week's pay in her beat bag. Contemporaries later said many saw the scene from windows overlooking the lot. Saw but didn't intervene. Fear paralyzed even those who'd help in other spots. 7 grown men against 1 girl. Step in and tomorrow your body's in the Moscow River. Better turn away, draw curtains, pretend nothing's happening. Voronezh leader Foma led unhurried, swaggering, showing total impunity. Right hand glinted with a finished knife open, no hide. The other 6 strung semicircle pro, smart, no breakout gap. Olga stepped back, then again back hit rusty freight car side. Nowhere left. Well, sweetheart? Foma's voice surprisingly soft, almost coaxing. Waiting for us, huh? Your protector tipped you, we're here. But he's MIA, probably bolted. They're all like that. These heroes till it gets real. He stepped closer. Others closed the ring. Olga's silent throat dry, tongue stuck to palate. Wanted to scream, but knew, useless. If anyone heard, they wouldn't come. Mind raced fragments. Hadn't said goodbye to her roommate. Never visited mother's grave in Tula. Sokolov was right. Should have left. But odd. Fear suddenly receded. Fatalistic calm took its place. If fated to die today, so be it. Just don't let them see the fear. Don't give that satisfaction. And at that moment, less than 5 meters away, when tattoos on Foma's arms were visible and the nearest Voronezh man's breath reeked of booze, the unexpected happened. From under the car, literally under Olga's feet, a figure rose. Slow, as if the earth birthed a man. Sokolov, dust and soot-covered, twig stuck in hair. He'd lain under the car, God knows how long, waiting. Stood between Olga and the Voronezh men, silent, no word. Just stood and fixed Foma with that gaze that had German sentries crossing themselves in 1944, atheists or not. 8 seconds of absolute silence. Even wind died, as if nature held breath. 7 men, with knives and pry bars, against one unarmed, seemed outcome set. But something in Sokolov's stance, head tilt, said, this man wouldn't yield. He came to die and take as many foes as possible. And judging by what he'd done to 4 Voronezh men half-hour prior, he could take plenty. Foma recovered first from surprise, smirked, shook head with fake admiration. Damn, Sokolov, you're a showman, popping from the ground like a war flick. He signaled his men. They fanned slow, encircling Sokolov and Olga, all sides pro, no rush. Each knew his spot in this death dance. But here's the deal, hero. Movie's over. Real life's starting, and you'll die like a dog in it. The girl? He licked lips, trailing off. Sokolov, still silent, just slight head turn, tracking foe with peripheral vision. Arms hung loose by sides, but fight-knowers saw, ready to move any second like coiled spring about to snap. Olga behind him pressed to the car, held breath. Knew, everything decided now. Either they walk out alive or, know what we did to your buddies? Foma kept on, clearly trying to rattle Sokolov. 4 pals, one probably won't make it. You hit something vital inside. He's coughing blood. But that's nothing next to what's coming for you. We won't kill you quick. First, you'll watch us have fun with the girl. All 6 in turn then. He didn't finish. Sokolov moved, not ran, flowed in that odd gliding way taught only in NKVD special schools, Soviet secret police training for deep reconnaissance. Foma didn't grasp what hit. 1 second Sokolov, 5 meters off. Next close. Elbow to solar plexus. Foma doubled, gulping air. Knife dropped from slack fingers. Sokolov snatched it mid-air, flung in one motion at nearest Voronezh man. Blade sank exact in shoulder joint. Arm dangled limp. The other 6 charged together, but Sokolov rolled back, using bent Foma as shield. Pry bar whistled where his head was a second ago. Counter knee to attacker's groin. Howl. Fall. 5 on feet. Sokolov circled them, not letting full surround, striking short economical blows. Elbows, knees, ribs, palms. Each precise to the millimeter taught in Army recon, where one off blow meant death. But Voronezh men weren't street trash, they knew fighting. And outnumbered him. Too many for one man. Even one so trained. First knife tagged Sokolov 3 minutes in. Blade grazed ribs, long gash. Blood-soaked shirt. Sokolov didn't flinch, kept up the methodical fury. Broke one arm, kneecapped another. But odds unequal. Second hit thigh. Leg buckled. Sokolov dropped to one knee. Voronezh men smelled weakness, piled on to finish. Then the unexpected. From behind next car, 3 men burst. Depot loaders. The very Alexei Nikolaev, with pry bar in hand. And 2 young ones. The same beaten by Claw's gang day 1. They'd watched from depot windows, hesitated long, but when Sokolov fell, couldn't hold back. Frontline brotherhood beat fear. Back off, our guy! Alexei Nikolaev roared, plunging into the fray. Pry bar swung wide arc crack. 1 Voronezh man flew aside. Young loaders didn't stand idle, swung clumsy but fierce. Men finally getting payback for humiliation. Balance shifted now 4 against 4. Foma still writhed on ground, gasping. 2 sidelined by Sokolov. one with Alexei's pry bar in skull. But Voronezh men were savvier, meaner, and armed with knives. Young Loader cried out, clutching gut blade under ribs. Second backed off, pressing slashed shoulder. Sokolov rose. Blood ran down leg, soaking pants, but he was up, snatched a dropped finish knife from ground, eyed Alexei Nikolaev. "Get the boys out, this is my fight." Foreman shook head. "Screw that, Ivan." Started together, end together. Sokolov smiled, corner mouth, first in years. Nodded, turned to remaining Voronezh men. Then a whistle pierced shrill. Police. Another closer. Boot thud on gravel. Someone called the cops after all. Maybe Uncle Fyodor the watchman? Maybe a neighbor. Voronezh men glanced. Brawl one thing, cops another. Half had records, descriptions known. Foma, staggering up, rasped, "Beat it!" They scattered every which way, saving skins left, even wounded pals. Minute later, lot empty. Left. Sokolov, barely standing. 3 loaders, bloody and bruised. Olga still pressed to the car. Cops arrived 2 minutes later. 3 sergeants, revolvers drawn. Saw the carnage, exchanged looks. Senior approached Sokolov. "What went down here, citizen?" Sokolov swayed, but held. Met the sergeant's eyes. "Misunderstanding, Comrade Sergeant." "Had a few." Words flew, were all squared now. Sergeant scanned blood on ground, torn clothes, clear fight signs, but saw something in Sokolov's eyes that made him nod. "Got it. Just get to the med post, or you'll bleed out here." Cops left. Alexei Nikolaev hooked Sokolov's arm. "Come on, Ivan, hospital time." But Sokolov pulled away, went to Olga, still frozen from horror, extended bloody hand. "Let's go. I'll see you home." The girl gripped it like a drowning man a straw. Only now, all over, she started shaking, delayed shock. They headed to the tram stop. Sokolov limped, leaving bloody trail on dusty road. Olga supported as best she could, though he weighed twice her, Alexei Nikolaev, and loaders trailed, ready to catch if he dropped. But Sokolov didn't drop, reached the tram, helped Olga aboard, stayed on the step. "Go on, I'll follow." Only when the tram rounded the corner did Ivan Sokolov let himself fall. Alexei Nikolaev later told it couldn't for long. Only at the wake a week later, after downing a vodka shot neat, wiping mouth with hand back, starting slow, words hard won. Saw plenty on the front, Rev Kursk. But what Ivan did those minutes, paused, shook head. Inhuman, and the most human thing I ever saw. When Sokolov crumpled on the tram step, Alexei Nikolaev lunged, tried to lift. Blood poured from 3 wounds. 2 knife gashes, side and thigh, and something bad inside from blows. Sokolov opened eyes glassy, but conscience flickered. "Alexei," he rasped, "they'll come back. Not now, day or 2, reinforcements for the girl." Nikolaev nodded. "No, Ivan, no letting her get hurt." Sokolov shook head. "Can't. More and meaner. I gotta finish it." What he meant by finish dawned later. They rushed Sokolov to a hospital on Moscow's edge. Doc said, miracle he reached the tram. Internal bleeding, 3 through and through stabs, 2 broken ribs, 1 punctured a lung. Surgery ran 3.5 hours. Chief surgeon, frontline vet himself, emerged to waiters, spread hands. Did what we could. Now it's up to the body. But even if he pulls through walking normal? Doubt it. Olga sat the hospital corridor all night. Nurses tried sending her home pointless. On a wooden bench, clutching a handkerchief, staring blank. By morning, Alexei Nikolaev arrived with thermos tea and sandwiches. Sat beside. Don't blame yourself, girl. Ivan wasn't living after war, just existing. When you showed, he woke. First time in 6 years I saw him alive. If something happens, no, he chose it. Chose dying a man, not lingering a ghost. Day 2, Sokolov came to weak, but alive. First words, the girl? Nurse smiled. Right here, 2 days straight. Sokolov closed eyes, tear rolled down cheek. First in years. Then, call Alexei Nikolaev and someone from the draft board. Talk short. Sokolov spoke labored, pausing for breath, but military crisp. Voronezh men wouldn't quit. Moscow underworld ties. Sooner or later, they'd return, if not these others. Olga always at risk. Only one way, he croaked. Take out the heads all at once. Example, so others think twice. Draft Board Lieutenant Colonel Kozlov shook head. Ivan Petrovich, you know I can't greenlight that. Sokolov cut in. Don't need greenlight. Just, if something happens, don't dig too hard. Vet, shell shock, snapped. Happens. Kozlov stared long, then nodded. Happens. That night, Sokolov vanished from hospital. How a man with punctured lung and 3 through stabs stood and left mystery. Nurses 3 a.m. Round bed empty. Window open. Sheets knotted rope-like. Alarm raised, but no search. Lieutenant Colonel Kozlov came personally. Ordered, patient in grave condition, signed out AMA against medical advice. Done. What followed pieced from scraps. Cabby Dmitry Lebedev said around 4 a.m. A strange fare. Hopped in pale, bloody bandages undershirt. Asked drop in Zamoskvorekie, house number 19 on Kozovinaya Street. Handed 10 ruble note. Wait an hour. If I don't come, drive off. Forget you saw me there. House number 19, rented to 4 surviving Voronezh men. Foma and 3 henchmen. Packing to bolt. Destroying evidence. Planned first morning train out of Moscow. Lay low. Return with heavy backup. 5 a.m. Neighbors heard noise from their room. Dull thuds. Breaking dish crash. Stifled yell. Then silence total. Ringing. Janitor Ivan, out at 6 a.m., sweeping yard, found their door ajar, peeked in, recoiled. 4 bodies. Foma by window, throat slit. Other 3, 1 neck snapped, 1 knife in heart. Little fight, killed fast, silent, like NKVD deep recon schools taught. On table, note in blood, debt paid. Sokolov found an hour later bench in square by Kozevinaya embankment. Sat back, leaned, gazing Moscow River. Lips frozen in odd serene smile. Pocket. 1944 recon platoon photo and folded paper. Letter to Olga Kozlova. Cops came quick, but docs just confirmed death. Internal bleed worsened by exertion. Miracle he reached the square after what he did. Lieutenant Colonel Kozlov took the body personally. Arranged military funeral. No official link to Voronezh killings. Report. Criminal showdown between out-of-towners. Letter to Olga, delivered by Alexei Nikolaev. Came to her place 3rd day after Sokolov's death. Girl opened door haggard. Eyes red from tears. Took envelope silent. Sat on bed in her tiny room. Unfolded sheet. Hand shaky letters jumped. Wrote by man, each move pained. Olga, when you read this, I'm gone. Don't cry. Lived 6 extra years post-war dead among living. You gave me 1 real month back. Thanks for that. Drawer in my room, false bottom envelope. All my savings, 750 rubles. No use to me now. Leave Moscow. Study. Live for you, and all us who didn't come back from that war. Sorry. Couldn't do different. I.S. Olga finished, pressed letter to chest. Tears streamed cheeks, but no sobs, quiet cry of adults knowing true loss. Alexei Nikolaev shuffled awkward at threshold. Burying day after tomorrow. Vagankovo. Draft board pulled strings for spot near vets. Come? Girl nodded, then soft. Alexei Nikolaevich, did he know he'd die? Foreman paused, then, new girl. Docs said no chance with those wounds, but couldn't do otherwise. Knew if Voronezh men lived, they'd come for you. Chose the only way to shield you, forever traded his last hours for your life. Funeral modest. Depot loaders came, few draft board vets, Closed casket Sokolov willed it. Draft board Lieutenant Colonel gave short oration on war hero. Red Star bearer Scout Ivan Petrovich Sokolov. How he nabbed tongues, led platoon from encirclement, blew bridge in enemy rear, spoke of war, of after nothing. Olga stood at grave till evening. Loaders long gone. Gravediggers filled pit, set temporary marker. She stood recalling his clumsy care, condensed milk can on desk, silent tram escorts, gaze through grimy office window, last look standing between her and death. Ready take any blow, so she lived. Evening. Unknown woman in her 50s. Black scarf approached. You Olga? Girl nodded. From that house where Voronezh men stayed. Saw what happened that night. Not all, but enough. Paused. Added, he slipped in quiet, like a shadow. They didn't wake right away. When they did, too late. But weird? He could have killed sleeping, but woke them. Gave chance to fight, but they saw his eyes, got scared. One dropped knees, begged mercy. Sokolov said just, for the girl, and did what he had to. Woman left, melted into dusk. Olga alone. Stood bit more, then bent. Laid small bunch field flowers on fresh grave, same kind blooming on vacant lot by freight yard. Thanks, she whispered, for everything. Next day, she found the envelope in Sokolov's room. 750 rubles fortune then. And another photo, that platoon one. Back inscribed, to remember. Olga stared long at young soldier faces. Sokolov sent her different. Alive, even slight smile. Beside comrades all dead, all gave lives for others. Week later, Olga quit the depot. Alexei Nikolaev paid her out. Added 40 rubles road money from pocket. Hugged fatherly. Ivan was right. Go, study, live and remember. It wasn't for nothing. Here, not for nothing. The 7th of May, 1951. Yaroslavl direction Moscow station. 6 a.m. Platform filling slow with folks. Some vacation, some business, some forever. Olga Kozlova stood by third car of Moscow-Leningrad train, gripping third-class ticket. Small plywood suitcase at feet, all her worldly. 2 dresses, change undies, recon platoon photo, Sokolov's letter. Nothing else. Left Kommunalka room to roommate. Rented out. Money extra. Only Alexei Nikolaev to see her off. Stood foot shifting. Don't know what to say. Finally, Leningrad. What then? Someone to crash with? Olga shook head. Find something. Ivan Petrovich left money covers start. Alexei Nikolaev nodded. Dug inner pocket. Pulled folded sheet. Here's an address. My second cousin in Leningrad, Tamara Vasilievna, on Vasilievsky Island. Say from me she'll help settle. Locomotive, first hoot. Folks hurried aboard. Olga grabbed suitcase, stepped to runner, turned. Alexei Nikolaevich, visit the grave sometimes, keep it clear. Foreman waved. And you, girl? Our depot guys go Sundays. Rotation. Ivan, he was for all us, not just you. For honest work, without bowing to punks. He proved it things in this country ain't all bought and sold yet. Second hoot. Olga boarded. To coupe. 4 fellow travelers, family with 2 kids parted for window seat. Train started slow, grinding, speeding. Olga forehead to glass, watching Moscow recede. City took her last close one, but gave new life chance at another's cost. Contemporaries recalled depot changes those days. Sokolov's death broke something in minds. Loaders stopped paying tribute to small-time crews. Banded, formed mutual aid crew. If one hassled, whole group answered. Month later, depot known in criminal circles as untouchable, mess with it, cost too high. Thieves steered clear. Sokolov's tale spread folkways growing details. Some made up, some exaggerated, but core held. War-broken man found strength for final fight. Not for motherland or Stalin, for the girl reminding him he was human. That story gave hope to other vets lost in peacetime, gave understanding. Their war unfinished, just enemy changed. In Leningrad, Olga met cold Baltic wind and drizzle, found Tamara Vasilievna's house, sagging wooden mansion, blockaded miracle survivor, door opener like Alexei Nikolaev, twin, stocky, solid, heard who and whence, nodded. Come in, spare room free, 25 rubles a month. But you girl studying? Alexei wrote, smart one. Olga nodded. Yes. Medical. Tamara Vasilievna grunted approval. Good call. Docs always needed. Especially after what country endured. Tomorrow to admissions friend there. Fix his papers. That first Leningrad night, Olga lay long, unsleeping narrow iron bed, in rented room, listening unfamiliar city roar outside window, thinking Sokolov, how he stood between her and death. His last letter. 750 rubles. Her new life ticket. Blood-washed money. But future chance. Morning woke clear. Now live for two self. And him. Become doc. Save lives. Repay debt. Never fully squareable. But try daily. Each saved soul. Admissions Med Institute. Eyed skeptical. Orphan. No stellar diploma. No connections. But when she told her story, not all, just tellable chair. Gray prof vet himself. Long silent, then. Accepted prep courses. Exams fall. Pass you study. Olga passed top marks. As if Sokolov helped from beyond. First letter from Alexei Nikolaev August. Short, man dry. Olga, all good here. Depot quiet. Grave visited. Cleaned flowers planted. Forget-me-nots. Ivan approve. Study. Olga. He'd be proud. Attached photo. Fresh grave, neat, tended plain wood cross. Flowers galore, not just Alexei's, from all Depot No. 9 loaders. Leningrad, 1956. Botkin Hospital. Night shift, surgical ward. Dr. Olga Kozlova, bent over operating table. 5th hour surgery, tough case. Young builder fell scaffolds. Multiple traumas. Internal bleed. Odds slim, but she didn't quit. Never did. Assistants marveled her stamina, standing hours at table, fighting hopeless cases. They didn't know in those moments, she recalled another bleeding out on vacant lot, but fighting on, rising from hospital bed with punctured lung to end it, trading last hours for her years. That memory gave strength always. Clamp, she commanded, tired voice. Little more. He'll make it. Has to. And the patient did. Like hundreds others, over 5 work years. Colleagues whispered behind. Kozlova's hopeless save rate, unreal like death backs off her. Only Chief Old Prof Simov understood. Once caught her in lounge, odd task, sorting old photos. Saw recon platoon shot. Asked careful, someone close? Olga nodded. Father. Not blood, but father. 1956. Promotion head of emergency surgery. Youngest in Leningrad. Pushed dissertation. Science path. Refused. My place here. Operating table where life or death decides. No one got choice. Science. Career. Med elite shot ditched for daily grueling emergency grind. Olga never married. Suitors came beautiful, smart woman, couldn't avoid notice. But all turned down. Gentle but firm. Friends tried fixing with prospects useless. Only once, Victory Day party, toasting fallen, Olga let slip. Had my man already won only, gave life for me. Others after seemed small time. Every year, the 8th of May, took day off. Moscow to Vagankovo Cemetery. Sokolov's grave changed over years. Wood cross swapped granite monument depot loaders, chipped in. Granite etched. Sokolov Ivan Petrovich, 1908 to 1951, scout hero. Nothing more unneeded. Who needed to know, knew. Others not. Olga brought field flowers, same kind, from vacant lot by freight yard. Sat bench beside grave, told of saved lives. Young lieutenant she pulled from brink post-crash, named son Ivan. Girl with heart surgery now runs laughs. Hundreds big small death wins. Paying debt. Ivan Petrovich, she said soft. Daily. No never full square. My one life versus 100 saved, still no match for that one given for me. But trying, honest trying. 1961. Depot No. 9 closed, new distribution center to other district. Loaders scattered. Alexei Nikolaev retired to daughters Podmoskovye. Before leaving, last letter to Olga. Hello girl, depot shutting time come, but Ivan memory stays with us. Everyone there that day told kids so they'd know. People existed who didn't bend. Proved honest living possible, even dishonest times. Take care, and thanks you. Without you, Ivan's gone unlived. But he went a man. Olga Kozlova worked surgery, 41 years. Saved, conservative count, over 2,800. Many brought kids, grandkids, later dynasties, her patients. 80s pushed for honored USSR doctor title, refused, not for medals work. Olga Kozlova died 1991, quiet, sleep Vasilyevsky Island apartment. Bedside table, 2 photos. 1944 recon platoon, Vagankovo grave. Will asked Barry Moscow. Beside Sokolov, honored patients by then influential got permit. Grave slab. Kozlova Olga Mikhailovna, 1933 to 1991. Doctor saved thousands lives. Small letters, her request. Debt paid. Contemporaries knowing story said, love needs no words. Hugs. Love debt. Love memory. Love service. Ivan Sokolov gave Olga life. She lived it so his sacrifice no waste. 2,800 saved lives. Thrice what one man changes world. Even giving own. Ivan Sokolov and Olga Kozlova story missed official chronicles, no book film plot, but lived people's memory. Depot loaders tales to kids. Doc Kozlova patients recalls. Moscow underworld legends of vets solo smashing 2 gangs. Story proved Maine. Even darkest times, truth standards found. While such people exist, hope does. 2011. Former Depot No. 9 site. Mall built. Demolishing old warehouses. Workers found iron box under office floor. Inside, document stack. And note. Docs April 1951 invoices ledgers. Nothing special. Note, few words. Woman's hand. Here worked man, proved good, stronger evil. Always stronger, even paying highest price. Box to Moscow History Museum. There in storage, small witness, big history. Of frontline scout saving girl at own life cost and girl lifelong saving others, repaying unrepayable debt, love debt, memory debt, honor debt.